Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Raquel, and first off, Happy New Year. I've seen everybody and their mother doing their top books of 2023, and so I want to talk to you about mine. I'm also going to be including some of my most anticipated releases of 2024, along with some of my reading goals. So this might be a little bit longer, but I kind of just want to combine them all. So let's get started. And by the way, these books are in absolutely no particular order because I tried to rank them, I really did, but every day I felt differently about where they should go. So just know that these are all amazing. I loved all of these and they're in no order. So starting out with my very first science fiction book, that was Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is about a man who wakes up, has no idea where he is, and all of the people surrounding him are dead, and he has no clue what's going on. And the story goes from there. This book was so fun, for a very sciencey book. It was very heartwarming, and I just really loved this book a lot. It was so fun, and it was something very outside of my comfort zone, which was very surprising for me. Next, we have my absolute favorite fantasy series of the year, and that was the Crowns of Daxia series. It is 2 full books and a little novella in between, and this was so good. The premise of this is that there is a human girl who is raised in a vampire world with her father, the vampire king, who adopts her when she's very young. And there's some Hunger Games type trials in here, which are really fun. The romance is really good, but I think my absolute favorite thing is Carissa Broadbent is a newfound author for me this year, and her writing is beautiful. This is actually an adult fantasy romance, which I appreciate because I'm kind of starting to fall out of love with YA, but the writing was beautiful. It was a little bit violent, but everything was great, and I feel like this had a really good balance of plot and romance, and I feel like that's so hard to find these days. Really loved our main character, Oriah. She's very strong. I mean, she has to be, being a human living in a vampire world, but yeah, this was very good. Next, I have 2 completely separate books by the same author, but I couldn't decide which one I liked them better, so I'm gonna count them both. And that is Ali Hazelwood is the author. I have The Love Hypothesis and Love Theoretically. I just couldn't decide which one I liked better. I actually ended up rating this one higher, but I think it was because it's one of the very first contemporary romances I had ever read. And then I read this one really recently, and so I think I've become a little bit harsher with rating books. But both of these are so good. I just really like her writing. I think this one specifically, I remember it's so funny. I was laughing so much. It's a perfect rom-com. It's really sweet, it's intelligent, and it's just something, I haven't read a lot of her others, which I think some people are kind of getting annoyed by, the women in STEM thing, but these are the only 2 that I've ever read, so I'm not bored of it yet, and I love them both. Next, we have The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I really can't explain to you why I loved this so much. But I think it was just very atmospheric, and again, probably one of the first contemporary romances I had read. So I just really it hit for me, and I just loved the guy in this. He very much gave me young Luke Danes from Gilmore Girls kind of vibes, and I love that man, okay? And this was a younger, hotter version of him, I feel like. But basically, our main female character lives in the city, and she lives with her mother and her stepfather. She finds out that her estranged father is dying, and she kind of flies out to where he lives in Alaska to spend some time with him before it's too late. And she ends up meeting this very grumpy pilot who works for her dad, and they don't really like each other very much at the beginning, and they kind of try to sabotage each other a little bit, which I think is so funny. And yeah, he's this is a city girl, she doesn't belong here. And yeah, I love this so much. It was just the perfect little romance book. Okay, next we have a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Let me just start by saying I pretty much love every single thing that Taylor Jenkins Reid comes out with. All of her books are extremely thought-provoking and just really hit in the feels for me. But I think this was the favorite by far from her, and that is After I Do. I think I have 2 books left to read from her whole backlist, and this is my favorite. And I think if you have been married for a really long time, you will probably very much relate to this, but this is basically about a couple who've been together for a really long time, and there's nothing inherently bad about their marriage. They, there's no abuse or cheating or anything like that. They just kind of grown apart a little bit, and they agree to take a year apart. There's no communication, They can't reach out to each other. They just have to spend an entire year apart, and they have the freedom to like date other people, do whatever they want, but they have to spend a year apart to decide if that's what they want. Do they want to be back together, or would they prefer their freedom? And I just feel like this book is so relatable. Like, again, if you've been married for a long time, I guarantee you every argument that this couple has, you've had with your spouse. And I just like it hit so hard. And like, I just remember feeling incredibly emotional about this book. And again, just like TJR, any TJR book you pick up, it's just very like thought-provoking. This is my year of Emily Henry. I read all of her stuff this year, and she is quickly becoming like one of my absolute favorite authors. But I think if I had to pick one that was my favorite, it would be Beach Read. I think this is like the epitome of like my humor. It's sweet, it's so funny. I loved everything about this. This was absolutely perfect. And the premise of this book is that these two characters were rivals in college. They were both like writers. She grew up to be like a romance author, and he grew up to be kind of like a general fiction with like maybe a little horror or like edgier type of books. And she ends up staying in a beach house next to him for the summer. And they definitely remember each other. They definitely remember they were rivals, but they end up, you know, one night like kind of making fun of each other, right? They make fun of each other's genre. And they both agree that they could very easily write a book in each other's genre. So they spend the summer writing a book in the other's genre, but they like go on these little dates to help each other with like the research for the book. So she brings him to like these really romantic spots to help him get inspiration for his romance. He brings her to go get like research about like a cult that he's writing about, just to give her like an idea of what goes into his books. And this is just so cute and so funny, and just like, I love everything about this book, and I love Emily Henry. Okay, next I got into my Cowboy Romance era, and I picked up the Chestnut Spring series. I feel like at this point I can say this is my favorite romance series of all time. I haven't read a ton of them, but this was so good. These were always my most anticipated reads as they were coming out. And yeah, the whole thing just revolves around this like family and some of their friends, and just like this like found family. Some are blood related, some are not, and they all get a book about their romance. They all just live on this ranch, and I love every single one of them. So you've got like boss's daughter / sports romance kind of thing. You've got single dad and his nanny. You've got ballerina and hockey player, also runaway bride, and also best friends to lovers. You've got single mom, surprise baby, my absolute favorite in the series. This is a perfect book. I don't want to hear any criticism. And then the last one is a military hero with some PTSD and fake dating, and this one was not my favorite. It was very good, don't get me wrong. Compared to any other romance book, I really enjoyed this. This was my least favorite in the series, but this series as a whole is a 5-star for me because Elsie Silver is just amazing at making me feel the feels. Okay, next I have part of the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. You'll notice if you're familiar with this series that I don't have the first one here, but there are 3 books out currently: Mile High, The Right Move, and Caught Up. And this is an adult sports romance series. The first one, Mile High, is about a hockey player and kind of a forbidden romance with a flight attendant on the team plane. This one is the girl from the first book. Her twin brother is a very famous basketball player. It's giving me all the LeBron James vibes, and he ends up dating his roommate, which is his sister's best friend that has nowhere else to go. This is such a good book. He's like grumpy, he's like very like a little OCD, he likes everything to be very clean and organized and quiet, and he doesn't go out, he doesn't party, he doesn't want anyone like starting any rumors about him, because like everybody just kind of wants to get to know him and be his friend because of who he is. And Indy, the girl in this book, is just a little chaotic, totally a girl's girl, loves her iced coffee even in the winter, loves romance books, you know, has her clothes all over the place. It is just super messy, and at first they kind of butt heads a little bit, but like Ryan Shea is like chef's kiss, super perfect kind of guy. And as if it couldn't get any better, then Liz Tomford wrote Caught Up. This is a baseball player who happens to be friends with the guy from this book. He is a baseball player, he's a single dad, and he keeps firing all of his nannies because no one is ever good enough to watch his son. Well, his boss, the manager of the team, decides that he wants his daughter to watch the son. And he kind of, the main character from this kind of feels like in a rock and a hard place because he can't necessarily fire his boss's daughter. And they're also definitely a forbidden little relationship going on there, but this book was so good. I just feel like out of all the things that I've read, I'm realizing that like a dad, like a really good dad is like a thing for me. I'm really into that kind of thing. Just watching a man be like really responsible and caring for someone other than himself, like a little baby who, you know, it gets me. It hits me in the heart every single time. Another author that I found this year was Abby Jimenez. I'm absolutely hooked. There is some of her backlist that I still need to get to, and she has something else coming out next year, which again, I'll talk about. But two of my absolute favorites of this year are Part of Your World and Yours Truly. These are so good. They're little like interconnected little 2-book series. This book is about a girl who is a doctor. She lives in the city. Her family is comes from a very long line of prestigious doctors, and she is engaged to another doctor who's kind of horrible to her. He's not like physically abusive or anything, but he's slightly mentally abusive, and she's just really not happy. And she's trying to break things off with him. She ends up breaking down on the side of the road one day, and this guy in this little nowhere town ends up helping her out, and they end up seeing each other often, and they end up falling in love. And I think besides the romance just being amazing and guy being amazing, and this little town that has all these funny little side characters, all of that's good enough, right, to make this a 5-star. But I think the thing that I love so much about this was that, you know, he taught her how to be herself and how to live on her own and take care of herself. I think a lot of times in romance books we have like the, you know, macho guy coming to take care of her and doing all these things for her, but he was like, no, let me walk you through, let me show you how to, you know, unclog your dishwasher, or let me show you how to like flip the circuit breaker or whatever. Am I saying that right? Clearly I don't know how to do that. Anyway, my point is that he's like not just trying to swoop in and do everything for her. He's trying to show her how to care for herself, and I just love that so much. And then the second book in this little series, you can definitely read either one of these without reading the other, but this one comes after, and this is following Brianna and Jacob. Brianna is the girl from this book's best friend. They're both doctors, right? And she is going for this like really prestigious position at her hospital, and all of a sudden this new guy comes out of nowhere and is all of a sudden in the running, most likely going to get the job. And she's like, he hasn't even been here, he hasn't done his time, and she automatically just kind of like hates him for that. But he's the sweetest guy in the world, and he has like real anxiety, and they slowly just kind of become friends. One of my favorite things is they start like exchanging letters between each other because he's anxious and he's nervous, and that's really the only way he can communicate with her is through letters, because he's just like too nervous. And I love the letters thing. I think that's so cute and so fun. And anyway, they become friends, and then they start becoming a little bit more, and very, very, very sweet. And honestly, like, I don't know which one I like better. Some days I like one, sometimes I like the other. I think today I'm feeling like I like this one a little bit better, but they're both like just perfection, and I will pick up anything that this author writes. Okay, when I said I wasn't going to be ranking these, I lied a little bit. So I do have a top 2. There are 2 books that I'm going to be talking to you about that are definitely my top 2, and there's just nothing else like them. While I've read some amazing things, there's just nothing that's been able to top these 2. So the number 2 book of the year would be Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. You guys, this is not only just a beautiful romance book, but this gave me like the most visceral reaction. Like, there's a part in this book that is incredibly sad, and I just was like sobbing, like uncontrollably, like can't breathe normally because I can't stop crying. Like, I had to put the book down, get myself together so I could just finish this. But there is a happy ending, so if that's something you're worried about, continue to read it, even though it's going to break your heart a little bit. But this book was so good in every way. Basically, this woman moves to a new town, and there is this recluse that no one really talks to named Archer. Everyone kind of treats him like he's a weirdo, but she kind of feels bad for him. She doesn't really have any friends either, and she kind of hates that he seems to be treated poorly. So she tries to befriend him and like show him about the world, because again, he's a recluse. He doesn't even really know how like social interactions are supposed to work, and he also can't speak. He was previously in a really bad accident that left him without the ability to speak. So you know, she speaks to him in sign language, and they just have like such a beautiful friendship that develops into an even more beautiful romance. And it's going to be really hard to ever top this book, because I think this is just like the best romance book I've ever read. I loved it. And that leaves the top book of the year. My absolute favorite, one of my all-time favorite books like ever, like Harry Potter level favorite book, would be The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I ended up listening to this on audio, and it was narrated by Julia Whalen, which is already going to be, you know, a huge plus. I think she did such a good job narrating it, and that may contribute to why I love this so much. But this is just immaculate writing, and the story was incredible. And you know, it didn't go in the direction that I thought it was going to go, which I was kind of glad. I think that if I had gotten what I wanted, it wouldn't have been as good. But basically, this woman was born in the very late 17th century, and at that time, all women, you know, were good for was marriage, right, and having children. And that's not what she wants. She wants to live her life, go on adventures, explore the world. And so she makes a deal with this, you know, dark creature. It's not really the devil. I'm going to call him the devil because it's just easier to say, but not really the devil, okay? But she makes a deal with the devil to be able to live as long as she wishes. And she agrees to sell her soul. So whenever she's done living, the devil-like creature will get her soul. What he doesn't tell her when he grants her this wish is that no one is ever going to remember who she is. She leaves the room. When she comes back in, that person will no longer remember who she is. If they go to sleep at night, they will no longer remember who she is. So she cannot have any sort of relationship. Her parents forget her. She can't have any romantic relationships or any friends. And so she just feels incredibly lonely. And you know, the whole purpose that this dark creature did this is because, well, he wants to collect her soul earlier. And like, who's gonna live for hundreds of years when they can't have any sort of human connection, right? He was sorely mistaken when he underestimated Addie LaRue, because she is a fighter and she is in love with life. And even though there's some negative things that come with it, she is living it up. And we get kind of two timelines. We get now, like modern day, where it's taking place in New York, and she has actually found someone, the very first person ever, who does remember her. And she starts having a relationship with this guy. And then we go back to the time, back into the past, as we see her life over the last 300 years, like how it's gone. So I really liked that. And this darkness, this devil, he visits her very often, trying to convince her to give up. And anyway, I don't want to give anything else away, because I think you need to go into this blind. I did. And I just think that there is really nothing else that can top this for me. I love this with my whole heart. I could continue talking about this for 20 more minutes, but I'm not going to. I'm going to move on. Next, I just want to mention a couple of new releases that are going to be coming out at the beginning of 2024 that I am most excited about. We're going to start with December. So yes, technically December is over, but it just came out a couple days ago, and that is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Letters of Enchantment series, coming after Divine Rivals. I wasn't like a huge fan of Divine Rivals. I liked it. I liked the writing. I liked the story. It wasn't like my favorite in the world or anything, but the ending left on such a cliffhanger that I am really curious to see how things end. So I will be picking that up very soon. And then at the end of January, we have The House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the Crescent City series. Gonna be honest, it's not my absolute favorite series by her, but if you read the second book, you can't just read that ending and then not continue, okay? So I will be continuing. In February, we have a couple of things coming out. First, we have Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Again, loving Ali Hazelwood, and now she's come out with a paranormal romance about a vampire and a werewolf. Yes. Then we have The Women by Kristen Hanna. I really want to start getting back into historical fiction a little bit more. I haven't read a whole lot in the last couple of years, but I've read two recently by Kristen Hanna that I absolutely loved. And The Women is going to be about some nurses during the Vietnam War, which I'm very interested to read. Then we have A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This is a fantasy romance series with like Norse mythology inspiration. I read her series The Bridge Kingdom a long time ago. It was actually the first like fantasy book that I had read in several years, and that was kind of the book that really got me back into reading, and I love that one, so I'm very excited about this one. April is going to be a really hot month for me, okay? We have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, auto by author. No idea what this book is about, but I will be reading it. Then we have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This is the same author that wrote the Six of Crows duology. This book is like a historical fantasy that takes place, I believe, in the Spanish Inquisition, but I don't really know much else about it, but it sounded really interesting. Then we have Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is going to be the first book in her Rose Hill series. It's taking place in the same world as Chestnut Springs, and it's like kind of connected to one of the characters from the previous series. So yeah, I'm gonna be reading that. And then we have Funny Story by Emily Henry. Again, no real idea what this is about, but I'm going to be reading it because I love Emily Henry. And then in June, we have a couple of new releases. We have Not in Love by Ellie Hazelwood. This woman is writing a bunch. Also, she already came out with something previously called Check and Mate, which is a young adult romance about chess that I haven't gotten to yet. So she is just pushing the books out and I gotta keep up. Then we have Play Along, which is the fourth book in the Windy City series. Loved Right Move and caught up, so super looking forward to Play Along. And then we have A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I'm still a little on the fence if I'm going to pick this up. I kind of want to see what everybody else has to say about it. I read The Dead Romantics by her this past year and thought it was just like kind of okay, but I really liked The 7 Year Slip, so I kind of just want to see what everybody else is going to say about it before I bother. And just a couple of other quick like little goals that I have for next year is I really want to open up my genres a little bit. I think I mostly read contemporary romance because it's my favorite, and that's probably not going to change. But I want to read some more fantasies. I didn't read a ton of fantasy this year. I would like to read some more like mystery thriller books and more historical fiction, more sci-fi. I just want to like mix things up a little bit because I think no matter how much you love one thing, it can always get a little boring if you don't mix it up. The three very specific books that I really, really want to get to this year that I've just been putting off for like, I don't even know why. I think I'm just really intimidated. I want to read Manacled. It's the very popular Harry Potter fanfic written by Sun Lin Yu. I am terrified by a 1,200 page book. That's why I haven't read it, if you want me to be honest. I think I'm gonna love it. I think I'm gonna absolutely love the book, but like that's so many pages. But yeah, I definitely want to make sure I get to that. I also would like to pick up a Brandon Sanderson book. I own 3 now, and I have yet to read one. And I think that I'm gonna like it too, but I am a little intimidated because I typically go for fantasy romance, and this is not that. This is just fantasy. And it's like high fantasy, and that's not anything I've really ever read before. So I'm just kind of like nervous that I won't like it. And they're also like chunky books as well. And the last one that I really want to get to is Babel by R.F. Kuang. That is also a huge brick of a book, and it seems intimidating to me. I'm scared of it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. I've only tried like one dark academia book recently, and I didn't love it, so I'm afraid that I don't really like that genre, but I'm gonna give it a try. But anyway, those are kind of like my goals for the year. I'm very excited about 2024, and I feel like I've learned a lot about myself as a reader over the last year. I've just learned a lot about what I like and what I don't, and I've learned to kind of, like I said, mix up my genres a little bit to prevent me from getting into a slump or getting bored. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year, and I'm very excited, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.